Welcome to a special SuperHouse Halloween special. This is Ben, and I'm here with
Wolfie.
Oh, and
my neck, my back, my pussy, and my crack.
also known as
Andrew.
Yeah. Okay. So today we are here to talk about the Batman VS Dracula, the 2005 direct-to-DVD movie from the we're way past the 1900s. 2005 animated movie. Now, this is, for those who don't know, in 2004, so Kids WB had the spin-off. Well, not the spin-off. The animated show.
That was the Frog Channel, right?
Yeah, the Frog. Hello, my baby. Hello, my honey.
The Frog Channel.
Hello, my ragtime girl. Kids WB had the Batman. It was their first attempt at an animated series post Bruce Timm, post Paul Dini. It was a completely different
It was the first
team.
one.
And it shows. Just kidding. Keep going.
Completely different team. The designs were different, as we can see right here. We have, for those who are looking at us at YouTube, we have the figure of the Joker designed by Jeff Matsuda and is voiced by Kevin Michael Richardson. The only Joker, I believe, to be played by an African-American actor. So this was the show for about a season and a half or so before they released this movie, The Batman vs. Dracula, the only movie that it had from the series or so.
Oh, this is the only movie in this for this whole thing. Okay, wow.
Exactly.
All right.
So it released around October, of course, of 2005. I don't know if they were trying to tie it in. They timed it at the same year as Batman Begins, but it happens to be released around the same year as Batman Begins.
Cool.
So chronologically, we kind of skipped a little just because if you're listening to this, it's Halloween week over in 2019, and we thought we might as well skip ahead to go to the relevant Batman versus the Supernatural. So we've all seen the movie today. And
Totally have seen it.
Yes.
100%.
And we're just going to go.
Totally had a long time to process this movie.
It was probably the best movie I've seen this week.
This week.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I saw Glass earlier this week.
Okay.
Batman versus Dracula is better.
Then Glass?
Oh, way better.
Glad that's a winning endorsement.
Way better.
Okay.
Needless to say, Wolfie hated
Glass is worse than
Glass.
David Goyer's Zigzag. Much worse.
Zigzag?
The worst movie ever made. Sorry, should have prefaced by saying that.
You negative Nancy over here, bro. You got to be a positive Patty up in
Well,
this
he's positive
motherfucker.
about Batman versus Dracula.
That's
so
true. You're positive Patty about that.
I'm in a positive place now that I'm not watching M. Night Shyamalan's Glass.
Well, all right. Well, let's get back to the actual fucking topic.
All right. So I know
I hate tangents. I never do it myself.
This is a movie I'd seen before. I grew up kind of with this animated series. It came out right around the time of like when I was in high school and everything. This was your guys' first time seeing this.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I never grew up.
Clearly.
That's true.
So let's go around and then, like, what did you guys think of this interpretation, having not really seen this before, or really seen the animated series that much? It doesn't seem like.
You take it, Wolfie.
I did remember when the Batman came out, and it's by the same, I believe it's by the same people who did Jackie Chan Adventures.
I think that's right, yeah.
Yeah, and so I was already kind of somewhat of a fan of that. Didn't watch it religiously or anything, but I caught a few episodes, and I always thought it was fun. So I was excited for the Batman, but then I remember seeing the Joker, and I was like, oh, getting all, what's the word, like
nostalgic,
nitpicky, fanboy about it, and then actually come to find the few episodes I did see, I love Kevin Michael Richardson's Joker.
No, he's legit. Yeah, he's pretty good.
So I was a little bit familiar with it.
Cool.
We're asking just about familiarity at this point.
Yeah, and then going into the movie.
Okay.
So let's go with
so I had seen pictures of this series, and I think I saw one picture once of this Joker back in 2005, and so I had very little familiarity with this series, but I did like it, and maybe I'm jumping the gun a little bit, but it starts off a lot with this like redhead penguin. And this was, if there's a list of where we're ranking penguins, this one's the lowest. This is the worst penguin I've ever seen in my fucking life. But that does not say anything about the movie as a whole. I'll put it that way. Was not a detriment to the thing as a whole.
Okay, so this version of Penguin is sort of the first one to point out it's not in the movie at all, but in the series, it's first one to point out the parallels that I think we talked about when we went over like what does Penguin represent to Batman.
Okay.
And this version of Penguin grew up in a wealthy family that used to have the Pennyworths as servants. So Alfred kind of has a connection to this version of Cobblepot. And
is that normal canon?
No, this is this version of it.
Oh, okay, I got you.
So the Cobblepots lost their fortune, and Oswald has been trying to reclaim it ever since. He has
That's kind of cool.
thugs in terms of henchmen. He has they call them the Kabuki twins. They look like they're in kabuki masks and stuff until they take off the robes, and they're actually assassins with like Wolverine type claws and shit.
Okay.
So they're not in this movie, unfortunately. He's not really. He's basically the Renfield of this flick. But that's the main thing I appreciate about this Penguin. That sort of formed my view of Penguin. But yeah, he's pretty much a joke in this movie.
I mean, what were your thoughts of this Penguin, Ben?
I mean, I like that aspect that I just described of it, but it's not in this movie at all, and otherwise, he's just pretty lame in this. He's voiced by SpongeBob SquarePants.
Oh, yeah.
He's voiced by Tom Kenny, who's a good voice actor, but, I mean, the Penguin here is clearly the brunt of the joke throughout this whole thing. So
he's just there's just nothing really evil about him. It's not. I mean, I know this is for kids, but still, like Dracula's so evil. I know he can't be as evil as Dracula, but like as dark as this is for a kids movie, it could have been. It just could have been a little better.
Yeah.
You know,
I agree.
I heard Tom Kenny in a reporter's voice or something. I was like, oh, that's SpongeBob's
Probably
voice.
did multiple voices.
Yeah.
I couldn't hear it in the Penguin, but dang.
Yeah, no, that was him.
Penguin.
I'd give him another chance. That guy's great.
Let's go into the movie now that we've sort of seen this, reviewed it, or whatever, starting with Wolfie.
How we liked it?
Yeah.
Thought it was really great, actually. It was super fun, had a nice pace to it, good plot-oriented Batman adventure, and I liked all the spookiness. At first, Andrew made a comment about the music, and it's like, it's kind of weak or whatever, but I really liked the guitar hits, the little twangy, seedy guitar riffs and stuff was awesome.
That's their way of identifying Batman in this version.
There's a few fights in it that were just really nice and meaty, well animated. I thought it was pretty fucking good, solid B.
Yes.
Solid B.
Yeah.
I'd go. I mean, man, you really jumped the gun on the Indeeds there, but
that's just a grade. That's just a grade. I haven't got to my Indeeds yet. I'll translate it. You got kind of an idea, but pretty much.
Okay. I thought it started off a little bit rough because of the penguin stuff.
Penguin, your favorite.
I didn't like this penguin.
This is going to be the longest hour and 20 minutes ever.
But it did kind of once it got its stride, it was pretty damn good, man. And you don't see a really good. We talk about Man-Bat and these horror scripts that were never made, but this one actually was made, and you get to see this kind of kids horror movie, but still pretty cool to see Dracula and zombies and fucking Batman fight the undead, sort of, kind of, and that was really great. On top of that, sort of an internal thing, internal enough for a kids show, where he's talking about how his villain is more of a bat, more legendary than he is. So there is some sort of inner struggle kind of stuff, and it's not it wouldn't be enough for a live action thing like a Nolan kind of thing, but it's enough for this kind of thing. It's totally enough, and so I thought that was pretty cool.
They weren't zombies; they were the what did they call them? The
lost
ones?
The
minions, the lost ones. The undead.
Yeah.
I liked that line that Dracula had, not the dead, the undead. I was like, Peter Stormare as Dracula, pretty great.
Kind of metal. I mean, anything that's going to be horror is going to have some metal.
Is that? It's interesting.
No, he's perfect for this. So, I mean, I remember I was watching this, just being I can't believe how much blood is in this stuff, especially the bloodbank fight with Vampire Joker, and he's just soaked in this literal red rain of blood on him. And of course, they had to animate it with the lighting so that it's black and rather than red, because then they didn't want it too much. But still, I'm just that would have been awesome if somebody changed it. Yeah,
I mean, there's a scene where Batman's literally doing a blood pump to feed Joker. This is a wild script, man, for a kids show.
Yeah, Batman actually stops going out and patrolling so he can find a cure for Joker. That's a huge character moment.
I thought that was pretty cool. Yeah. It shows the what do you call it? The graciousness, the benevolence of Batman in that way. You know.
Yeah, he stays in the Batcave rather than answers Vicky's call Like that says so much about the character.
Right.
His relationship
He's afraid
with
of
Joker.
commitment.
Yeah. But he's committed to
He'd
Joker.
rather be in his
He
man
is totally-
cave.
They're meant to do this forever.
Yeah, pretty much.
These aren't toys. I'm a hobbyist.
3 main sequences that stood out for me. First one, Batman versus the SWAT team. That seems like it's
Yes.
kind of cool,
Yeah.
and then it turns
Yes.
out it's actually Dracula taking out the SWAT team.
Yes.
Oh, right. That was cool.
Yeah,
Very
that was
cool.
really well done.
That was a
man.
cool twist
Yeah.
on it. Second of all is, of course, Vampire Joker. I mean,
Yes.
that's something
Yeah.
that's actually
Yes.
unique to this story.
I want that figure, that different color scheme that they had going.
Yeah, with the
he
fangs
looked
and
great
everything.
with the
Yeah.
fangs and the claws.
There's
Yeah.
probably a Funko of that. There's a Funko of everything.
I don't like Funko Pops.
Oh yeah, I
Said it
forgot.
first.
No Funko for you. And then the last one.
And I don't like you. And I don't like you.
I hate everything.
And this wine is okay.
My name's Wolfie.
And then just it always struck me.
Oh my god. All right, if you're listening to just audio, his fucking mic just fucked up. All right, anyway, keep going, Ben.
The ending where he sort of re-embraces the bat side of him. He remembers falling into the cave and
Yeah.
dons the thing, and there's always some interesting thing with him going up against the supernatural, and we'll talk more about this, but like he has a no killing rule, but what do you do when your opponent's already dead?
I said the same thing as soon as this movie ended to
Go
Wolfie.
to
Yeah.
town
I was like,
on motherfuckers.
Yeah.
he has a no-kill rule for just humans and maybe some other people, but like this is like an almost unstoppable force, a guy that will never fucking stop.
He has to make that exception.
Yeah, like Joker's still human and can be put in Arkham Asylum. Fucking Dracula cannot be put in Arkham Asylum.
Right, yeah.
So this is the where you draw the line.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
That's why when he does kill him, it's like the rare times you see Batman kill, but it's so justified.
It's fine. Yeah, it's really weird, right?
like
yeah.
you don't
Punched
mind
his
it.
ass into
Yeah.
a pile of bones.
Yeah, I forgot about that part when I rewatched it today. I was like, oh, like he's just gonna use the sun because I
quite
remember that part.
Yeah.
And then he just goes down and just
He
smashes
punches.
him.
He just
I'm
punches. Yeah, doubles down on that shit.
Yeah.
You could say he like hates
I think he enjoyed
Dracula more than any of the other villains because he's
Ooh.
willing to let like look what he does for Joker. His most hated enemy. He keeps him in the Batcave so he can save his life. But
Is that
Dracula, he's like, fuck you. I'm gonna kill you.
Is
Yeah.
it because he feels like he's just a little bit extra dangerous? Is that why?
Well, he has that great line. He says, he may walk like a man, but he's
no
a
man.
monster.
He's
Yeah,
a monster. He's a monster. Yeah.
exactly.
It's like, ooh, that's
Yeah.
cool. That's the right when I said, oh, I want to see him fight all the Universal monsters now.
that would
Let's
be-
do the
that'd be
Batman vs.
sweet.
Frankenstein.
That's so true.
Seems like it'd be
Batman
so
versus
easy to beat
Wolfman,
Mummy,
son.
though.
Mummy would be great. He's on an expedition in Egypt.
There's probably
On a
bats in those
Wing-Tech
pyramids.
scholar-
If it's
scholarship.
the like
maybe
mummy who can
Venture.
do the like plagues thing, like in the Brendan Fraser movie, that would be dope.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
I want to see
That'd be cool.
Batman stealth takedowns in a pyramid.
That'd be pretty
Ooh,
sweet, actually.
Yeah,
That'd be
that's
pretty
a good
sweet.
point.
I mean, there's a way you could work all that shit, man. That'd be
He's
awesome.
got to go to Egypt.
Ra's al Ghul. Ra's al Ghul's Egyptian.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, well there you go.
Ra, he and Ra's are after the same mummy or something like that.
Rami Malek
And he,
plays
like,
Ra's al Ghul.
and he like knows that mummy
Damn.
Yeah.
when he was living. There we go. That's another pitch.
His
There it
childhood,
is.
his boyhood
You're welcome,
friend.
Warner Brothers.
He's
Yeah.
got an emotional connection to him. No, Batman, don't kill him. He's like, but I love killing monsters. He unravels him.
Technically undead.
He's a monster. He's not a guy.
Can we
Kill the
just
fuck out of him?
let's go back a couple scenes and where we have a fucking whole scene where Batman is just stabbing motherfuckers with syringes.
Yeah.
Oh,
exactly.
that's great,
That
too.
scene was awesome. That was one of my favorite scenes, man.
That was awesome. He's
Yeah.
taking out the what were they called again?
The
lost
ones.
ones.
The lost ones.
The
yeah.
undead.
Basically, like zombies that are reversible because we can't kill people in this except for Dracula in this
it's
kids'
a
car
T-
show.
Yeah, it's a TVG
Yeah,
version
yeah.
of like I can cure vampirism and everything like that. Like it's
Yeah.
obviously
Yeah.
not what you're gonna see in most vampire movies, but like whatever.
Yeah.
It's this version and it's the Batman type of version. So
And
it's
they're
cool.
like zombie vampires.
yeah,
They're
exactly.
their own kind of thing, which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
This is pretty good, man. I mean, this is a very competent fucking movie, man.
Yeah.
yeah.
For the most part, except for Penguin. I just can't. I'm sorry you made $1 billion off of SpongeBob, so I'm sure I don't give a fuck. But
I mean,
man,
it's,
that
it's
thing
not
was
the
not
actor's
good, bro.
fault. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not the actor's fault on this. I always did like the idea because they like pairing these two together. I mean, if there's anybody who goes up against Dracula more, it's Sherlock Holmes.
Okay.
Because of the fact they're from the same era.
Yeah.
But you encounter the same thing where you have a detective type who's very much about science and logical thought, and he's up
Right.
against the supernatural, and he's just out of his depth in the beginning. He's just like,
Right.
I don't think that this is real, or like I've never been able to prepare for this because I never thought this stuff was real. So I'm
Right.
like, what do I do against this type of stuff? So I always thought that was cool about it, outside of the fact that like, the whole do I kill or do I not kill when the person's already technically dead,
Right.
that type of aspect. And then, of course, the other part that I really liked about it was what you already brought up with the whole idea of like Dracula is everything that Batman pretends to be.
Right.
He is
Right.
the legend that is the one in the shadows. Batman just uses that as like a weapon and a tool, but at the end of the day, he is a guy who's just out there saving lives and is a human being. Dracula is not.
It makes Bruce Wayne feel fake, I guess.
Yeah, it does. And like,
Yeah.
how do I like? He became Batman to strike fear into criminals. He can't make this guy afraid of him at all.
Yeah, that's true.
Right?
That's
Like,
true.
there's nothing this guy is like, you ain't shit.
Doesn't have the edge.
Yeah, he has no edge against this guy. It's just a modern man against him, which is kind of cool. Where at the end, it's technically Bruce Wayne who kills him,
Right.
With his device. It's like, you're Bruce Wayne, and he's like, I'm the Batman, and I'm like,
Right.
okay, that's him not only reclaiming the identity, but also being like, you got owned by a human being,
Right.
not just another Batman on this. So that's what I appreciated of this ending on here. Let's see. Outside of that, in terms of the Batman stuff that was in here, I'm not sure if you guys noticed, but there was no Commissioner Gordon.
Yeah.
Did not notice that.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's
He
because
was on paid administrative leave this weekend.
Commissioner Gordon actually didn't show up until the end of season 2
Oh, in the cartoon?
in the show.
Because he was
Oh,
younger,
wow.
right?
Okay, they
Had he
wanted
not
just-
met him yet. And everything?
Yeah, there was this weird thing. They call it the Bat embargo. That happens with some of these TV shows where they're not allowed to use certain characters who show up in the movies. Now, at the time, Batman Begins was coming out, and Gordon was a part of it. They've never used Ra's al Ghul or Scarecrow in this show.
Okay.
Possibly because of that, and they didn't use Two-Face either. Now, keep in mind that doesn't explain how they can use Batman, Alfred, Joker, and Bane, and Catwoman are the ones who actually did end up in the movies.
Yeah.
But those certain characters didn't show up.
They didn't want to confuse the audience.
They didn't want to confuse the audience,
How can there be two Batman things going on at once?
an animated series and a Christopher Nolan movie? It's the same thing. I can't.
I can't
equate
wrap
it.
my head around it. I don't know what it is.
So in the beginning, it was two detectives who were hunting after Batman throughout the first season, and that one was Ellen Yin, who was a Chinese American version of Ellen Yindel, who was the commissioner replacement for Gordon in The Dark Knight Returns, and she was voiced by Ming Na. That was before, before Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. days and everything. And the other detective was Ethan Bennett, who was basically, he was voiced by Stephen Harris from The Practice, but he was this black, bald guy, and he's not from the comics at all. But he was established as Bruce's childhood friend.
He's there, Harley Quinn.
He's there, Harvey Dent, actually.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Because later on, Joker turns him into Clayface. And he's their Clayface, and so...
Not Two-Face.
Not Two-Face, actually. Probably because they couldn't use Two-Face.
Wait, Harvey Dent becomes Clayface in this
Well,
one?
he's Ethan. His name is Ethan Bennett, but he's kind of like Harvey Dent.
He's that archetype.
He used to
okay.
be Bruce's friend and ally, and
I gotcha.
he becomes a
Okay,
villain.
I gotcha.
So
It makes sense now.
it does
You're
make sense.
stoked.
Yeah.
Thank
So
you, man.
during this time, those were the detectives on it until they did an episode at the end of season 2 called Night in the City, where Batman and Yin are going up against Joker, Penguin, and Riddler at the same time. And Batman sort of establishes himself as the protector of the city and steps out of the shadows, and that's when Commissioner Gordon shows up with a bat signal.
Okay.
So then Gordon became part of the show, and then they brought in Batgirl in season 3. And then season 4 is when they brought in Robin. So
They had
Batgirl...
4 seasons of this show?
5, actually. Yeah.
5, really?
Yeah, so...
To 2010.
You don't know nothing.
Yeah.
Dude, I didn't know. This one just went by me, man. I did not know about
It's
this
one of the
one at
more
all.
obscure versions of it. It hasn't really influenced
was like
anything since. but
Let me put it this way. I've seen more Beyond the Batman, or
This
what's
was
it called?
third year
Beware
of
the Batman?
college,
Beware the
too.
Batman than this show.
This is third year of college. Andrew was just trying to finger bang
I was getting the beak wet over there, man. You know what I'm saying?
I mean, you were spending your time better than I was at the
Did
time.
it in the launch.
I was watching the Batman. I was watching the Batman cartoon while you were doing that.
Oh,
The
man.
story of my life.
Definitely,
I was
definitely
finger
got laid
banging
in the laundry room.
imagination.
What would you say?
I was finger banging imagination.
yeah. Okay.
Let's see.
God, SuperHouse was crazy.
SuperHouse. Season 3
Still is.
Season 3 was where they brought in Batgirl. Poison Ivy was, for some reason, was her high school classmate. So Poison Ivy was a teenage girl. So there's like,
oh really?
Kind of factored to that. Season 4 was when they brought in Robin, and that was kind of a cool episode because his dad was voiced by Kevin Conroy. Mr. Grayson was voiced by Kevin Conroy.
Oh shit!
And Boss Zuko, who
really shook it up.
Yeah, Boss Zuko, who kills the Graysons, was voiced by Mark Hamill.
Oh shit!
So they tried and brought them in, everything, and then Robin got introduced, and Robin had to meet Batgirl, and Batgirl felt jealous because she's supposed to be Batman's original partner in this continuity.
Mm-hmm.
So that was cool. And then season 5 was when they just went full Justice League with it.
Cool. Okay.
So every episode was Batman teamed up with a different Justice League member. They brought in Superman.
There's
Green
Beware.
Arrow.
I keep saying Beware. There's the Batman versions of all these characters, huh?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly. And then they brought in Lucius Fox at like the last minute, even though like Lucius Fox at that time was basically Morgan Freeman.
Okay.
He looked like Morgan Freeman. He had the same backstory and everything.
This
and
is wrong.
This is wrong. Yeah.
This is wrong.
Rehabilitation.
Consider it my resignation.
And
That's the best I got so
it
far.
ended with. Actually, I don't really remember. Yeah, it ended with all of them finally teaming up in it. And and lastly, what was cool was that they had their own version of Hugo Strange, who was the administrator of Arkham Asylum. This is the first time that they established that, actually, with him being the administrator of Arkham.
These are the best episodes, or what?
These are some of the best episodes.
I know you're the biggest Hugo Strange fan there is.
Yeah. And he was voiced by Frank Gorshin.
What?
Cool.
The
Who
Riddler.
played the Riddler?
That motherfucker's still alive?
Yeah, well, he was still alive at the time. He died like halfway through it, and then they replaced it with a guy who was doing an impersonation. So
Frank Gorshin?
Frank Gorshin was
fucking Hugo Strange?
Was Hugo Strange for a bit, yeah.
Well, Jesus,
and he
H. Macy.
He deepened his voice as Hugo Strange, and that was actually the influence on the voice in the Arkham City game.
Oh, shit.
You know how
Okay.
in the Arkham City game, he has the very, like, I look forward to beating you, Batman.
Yeah.
Like the first one to take that type of voice was Frank Gorshin.
Yeah, okay.
So we owe not just the Riddler characterization type stuff to Frank Gorshin, but also Hugo Strange. In that there was, for a while, he was kind of an ally to Batman as the administrator to Arkham and everything, but you knew there was something going on under the surface, and he was secretly doing shit to break the Arkham inmates out to test the Batman and everything because of his fascination with him. There was another episode called Strange Minds where they literally go into it's like a version of The Cell, where they literally go into the Joker's mind.
Okay.
Hugo Strange was the guy who could like record dreams and shit, right?
Record dreams?
Wasn't that in Batman the animated series?
In the animated series, yeah, he did.
And he like figured out his secret identity.
Yeah,
to
and
his
then tried
dreams
to
or
auction
something?
off. So yeah, that version of Hugo was a wimp.
That's the only one
version.
I'm actually really familiar with.
Yeah, no, this one was the actual criminal mastermind. Probably the best animated, definitely the best animated version of Hugo Strange. One of the best versions of the character,
really?
Adaptation-wise, before Gotham and Arkham City.
Okay.
Also, they all nailed it. Really.
Arkham City more or less nails everything.
Yeah,
right?
pretty much.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was cool. Instead of the bat signal for a little while, he had something called the bat wave, which is that thing that blinks on and off in the Batcave that you saw in the movie.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and it looks like the Adam West Batman signal.
A little bit,
Has
the rounded edges.
Yeah,
on the
I
wings.
think it's if it's not that, it's pretty damn close. I think.
Yeah. I like that sound so much that is now my ringtone.
Oh shit, that's awesome.
Nice.
Because no, that's if I use the Adam West bat phone because I tried that once and that did not go over very well.
Aunt Harriet's calling.
So I only use that for like if my boss calls or something. But
Wait, what happened in this situation? I want to know.
no, it's annoying as fuck. It goes,
Okay. I thought
the hell
it
is
really
that?
like fucked over like you when you're making out with a girl or something.
No,
She's like, I have got to leave.
no, they wouldn't know what sound it is.
Last time I'm downloading Zedge,
This is
the ringtone app.
let's see, the first. Yeah, this is the only movie of the Batman, but it was not supposed to be. It was only supposed to be the first one. The second one they were going to do was the Batman versus Hush. They were going to do
that
Hush.
was them.
Yeah, they wanted to do Hush. They said they were going to feature their version of Joker, Catwoman, Clayface. I think the Ethan Bennett version.
Yeah.
Because they brought in a second Clayface later. Penguin. because Penguin's such a big part of this animated show, even though he's not in the Hush.
Yeah.
Penguin.
Mr. Freeze, who is voiced by Clancy Brown, Lex Luthor himself.
Cool.
Oh shit.
And this Mr. Freeze shot ice stuff from his hands.
Oh, that's
It was
cool.
part of his suit.
That's cool.
That's cool.
There was no Nora though. He was like a thief who got like caught up in the ice, so it wasn't as
Maybe
cool.
they felt that was too much like the other one.
Yeah, I guess they didn't want to compare it to Heart of Ice.
Yeah.
And they would have
Do their
featured
own thing.
Yeah, exactly. And it also, of course, because he's one of the main villains, would have featured Riddler, who in this continuity was his design looks like Marilyn Manson.
Okay.
with like long black hair.
This is for what?
The Batman.
For the Batman. Okay.
Yeah, but he was voiced by Robert Englund, and he had a really
shit.
cool. Yeah, he had a really cool voice as the Riddler. The show also had the ventriloquist, who you can briefly see in the beginning of this movie.
Okay.
He's one of the inmates.
I saw him dummy.
with like the glasses and everything.
Oh, yeah.
And he was voiced by Homer Simpson himself.
Oh,
What?
Dan
Castellaneta.
Castellaneta.
Yeah,
Oh, Marge.
he was actually he was really good in it because you couldn't tell that it was Homer. Yeah.
Oh my god.
Come to
So
bed,
let's see other connection.
Anyway, good.
So that's what I got to say in terms of connections to the Batman series. We're going to do a deep dive now because I prepared stuff in terms of Batman.
And I just put on my trunks.
Surprise deep dive. There's a long
Surprise
history
deep dive. Here we
of,
go.
Batman and Dracula, or Batman and vampires in general.
Are they all set on All Hallows Eve?
No, not necessarily.
AKA Samhain?
Not necessarily. Not necessarily. So let's see. What
Pagan.
other things do we have?
It's a pagan, man.
Pagan, man.
Hey, man, you worship
Watch
the devil.
out, man. They eat fucking raw bacon or some shit, I heard.
I heard raw bacon, man. Wait, I thought only Muslims don't like that stuff. Man. You telling pagans don't like
I
it either?
heard they eat vegan cheese.
Vegan cheese, man. That shit tastes like
Sinful.
fucking shit, man.
I imagine.
Oh, I'm cracking myself
Whenever I
up.
have vegan ice cream, it always feels like there's like something's always missing from it. I'm just like, it's just not sweet enough or whatever, but it's just.
It doesn't
had
come
Menchie's
from
last
the
night.
tit of a cow.
I needed to come from the tit of a cow. Like,
I
that's
needed
how
to
it
be
is.
sucked
I
from
will
the
shit
tit.
my pants.
The teat.
Why do you have lactose intolerance?
Yeah.
Let's see. Other
Do you
things.
really?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Okay.
With like milk and ice cream are tested. I can eat
Loser.
cheese okay.
Ah, gotcha.
But I
You
think
can't
there's
eat
not
a
as much.
cheeseburger?
No, yeah, I can eat.
Yeah,
I
'cause
think
there's
there's
a
not as
little
much
bit of cheese in
lactose content in cheese.
Yeah, man. Don't
But
be a wuss.
liquid milk, it's fucking disgusting. From a cow? I only drink breast milk, White Russians, man.
I've seen Oak Job, man. That make me a goddamn vegan up in this motherfucker.
Yeah, I hope that was great.
What if there's a redneck vegan? That's the next character, bro. Man, you know you got to worry about your your carbon
They
footprint,
use all
man.
kinds of antibiotics and enzymes and things. You
That
don't
shit-
need that in your body.
that shit contributes
You
to
look
climate
back
change,
into
man.
history, you'll see
Give you
that
cancer.
Yeah, if you cancer,
People
man,
shouldn't
get all
be
kinds of
ingesting
things,
other
man. Your health
animals'
go down the
milks.
goddamn toilet.
Let's see. There was a brief tie-in comic with this movie because there was a whole comic
yeah,
series.
Batman.
Yeah, there's a whole there's a whole comic series that tied into the show called The Batman Strikes. And issue number 15 was sort of, it's kind of set in the middle of the movie where this rich brother and sister duo, I think, get kidnapped. And they think they're one of the lost ones, but it's really Penguin trying to do like his own scheme behind Dracula's back and shit.
It's this penguin.
Yeah, of course. It's this Penguin's tied into the animated series. It's your favorite version of Penguin.
Penguin.
Oh man.
So
Played
there's that
by
version.
Genuine.
We didn't really talk that much about Vicky Vale.
Oh, she was drawn well.
Quite like
We
her.
worked. I'm
Played
sorry.
her Sarah Michelle Gellar's legs.
I don't want to get too creepy, but you know, it was a good drawing.
I crush on cartoons.
She's voiced by Tara Strong.
Oh, that's
Very
right.
strong, yeah.
She's also, I think she's the only animated Vicky Vale. Because she wasn't
And
in the
really?
animated series.
And a redhead. She's normally blonde, right?
She's normally a redhead, actually.
She's normally a redhead. Oh,
They
well,
were- she was
Burton
only-
lied to me.
Yeah, she was only blonde in the 89 movie because they got Ken Basinger at the last. Well, she could have been brunette because it was
Love
going to be
Ken
Sean Young.
Basinger.
You know, but
I'm sorry, I am a fucking bat poser.
you fucking pose. Yeah, she's always been a redhead.
Bat loser.
She's been a redhead since her first appearance in the 40s and everything. And she's written as a redhead in the original 89 script, but because of the casting involved and, you know, you don't turn the hottest blonde in 1989 into a redhead for
Okay.
one movie.
She was cool. She's not quite as badass as like we've seen Batgirl, but I guess not every woman character is going to be that badass, but it does
not,
kind of
yeah.
fall into the trap of like a woman needing to be saved.
Yeah.
But other than that, I mean, look, man, I thought it was pretty good overall.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
And she added to the story.
She adds a little,
with an emotional component in terms of her fondness for Bruce and trying to get closer to him.
Behind the
That was
mask,
good,
yeah.
as opposed to just being like damsel in distress kind of.
She has that line like, I'm not that shallow and all that.
Mm-hmm.
That's good.
And then
Yeah.
later
That's
she
good.
becomes damsel in distress.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Both,
then that
best
happens,
of both
but-
worlds.
It does become it does make me wonder if they explored her a little better than the '89 movie where she's mostly just a damsel in distress.
Yeah.
And she was
Pretty
intended
much.
to be
Yeah.
more like this, where she's like supposed to have a little more depth to her. But as we went over in our
man.
yeah, in our,
That was.
as we went over in the deep dive episode on those scripts, like they kind of cut a lot of the stuff that made her, more interesting. And it's ambiguous to me at the end whether or not she figured out that it was Bruce as Batman, because she's kind of looking up at Batman. 'Cause
yeah.
It's not like she
Yeah.
had much time with Batman to have an emotional connection to him.
Yeah.
So maybe she's figured it out, but she never shows up in the actual show. So this is the most that we get off of the Vicky Vale story,
Right.
in this continuity. All right, so deep dive stuff. Not only am I the senior Batman correspondent, but I also know a shit ton about Dracula. So here we go.
Holy shit. We're lucky at SuperHouse. Thanks, Ben.
Dracula, the original novel, has a lot of differences from what we know of vampire lore.
Okay.
And shit. So the image of Dracula that we normally see, and even the version in this movie, is not what is in the novel. We're used to the Bela Lugosi, the handsome guy with like the widow's peak and shit, and wearing he's decked out on the cape and all that, and that's just all Universal Studios in 1931. The actual version, he shows up and he's an old man with a bushy white mustache. In the novel, he's basically Commissioner Gordon. No surprise he was played by Gary Oldman.
Not a
at one
sexy
point, but
vampire at all.
Not very sexy, but he does get younger as he drinks more blood. And so he goes from, old man with a mustache to young man with a mustache.
Okay.
But that's one of the things that got carried over into this movie is the whole, he gets younger whenever he feeds. Because we didn't see that with Bela Lugosi or with Christopher Lee or
That's
anything
cool.
like that.
Yeah, I
like
like the
that,
evolution aspect to this.
Yeah,
To this guy.
he's kind of like a ghoul at
Yeah.
first, like
Yeah.
that Nosferatu-looking kind of monster.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
He's
Yeah.
more human-looking.
Which
is cool.
Exactly. So he starts off more, but then he can blend in more the more that he feeds. Let's see. Him shapeshifting into a bat is also from the novel. That's another factor of it.
I love that shit. Like I feel like they don't do that with a lot of vampire stuff anymore.
Yeah, not
But
really.
I mean, turning into mist, turning into a wolf, at will, turning into a bat. I mean,
Yeah.
I think I would love them to bring that back. Maybe it makes him too powerful, but
Yeah.
man, the more powers, the better, dude. I think it's so cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You just have to be clear about what the rules are. on
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
Let's see, him having no reflection. Obviously, that's a famous vampire thing. And then Dracula having a human servant. Most of the time, it's Renfield. So Penguin was basically his Renfield. Your favorite Penguin.
Worst Renfield ever, bro. Worst Renfield.
The alias of Alucard, with him spelling his last name backwards, it's become such a trope in Dracula movies. It started with Son of Dracula of Lon Chaney, and just every single time Dracula's trying to go by an alias, he goes by Alucard. It's worn thin.
It's the also it's very famous in the Castlevania video game series.
Oh, yeah, that's true,
The
yeah.
Symphony of the Night, where you play as Alucard, but they do make a difference in that game where you're Alucard fighting Dracula. I think, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
Also in that game, you could turn into mist, turn into a bat, all that shit. Fucking love it. Anyway,
the
keep
mist
going.
stuff is from Bram Stoker, but
Yeah,
let's see.
for sure.
We'll go into one of the major differences, but later on. But his bride in this movie is Carmilla Karnstein. Now, that's not just some made-up name from the movie, nor is it actually in the Bram Stoker book. Carmilla Karnstein is actually a vampire from a story before Dracula was published.
Really?
She
So
was-
this is really well researched. This
Carmilla.
movie.
Yeah, it is. It was written in 1872, and Dracula was 1897. So it actually predates Dracula as a vampire story. Has similar aspects to it.
Crazy.
Eastern Europe, castles, mysterious. People getting victimized and dying and
It's
everything
essentially
like
a woman Dracula
Yeah.
doing all the Dracula things.
that. Pretty much. However, there's one main thing, and that's probably the reason why it wasn't super popular at the time, even though it would probably be more popular now. Lesbians.
Oh,
She
really?
basically has a lesbian relationship with the main character. And
There weren't lesbians back then, though, man.
so I'm
Until
sure
1995.
That's a recent thing, man.
In
When
18
everybody started going vegan, bro, they started getting gay.
It was a liberal response to the election of the great Ronald Reagan.
The chemtrails turning us goddamn lesbos, man.
That's
So-
when they first tested the gaydar on. The gay
Chemtrails
laser.
turned on the gaydar. That's what I believe.
I read that book on
Get your
YouTube.
tactical bath from Alex Jones. Hey everybody, it's Andrew. I just wanted to tell you about our friend Israel's retro gaming shop, Retro Co. If you go to retro-ko.com, you'll be able to see all of his retro gaming goodies. If you wanted to get that Sega Saturn hidden gem from back in the day, or if you wanted to get the Famicom disk system that you never got as a kid, or any other type of retro game that you were into, or import game, please go to retroco.com. That's retro-ko.com. And if you use the SuperHouse code Johnson's Ballsack, you'll be able to get a little bit of a discount at checkout. So please, once again, if you could just go to retroco.com. You can also go to facebook.com/retroco with no hyphen. That's RETROKO. You'll be able to find him on Facebook as well. If you were looking for that PlayStation import game that you never got, if you were looking for that Mega Drive game that you never got, or any other kind of retro game, any import game, it could even be European, Israel also curates bundles at RetroCo, and he'll curate that bundle just for you. So please, go check him out. If you put in the code Johnson's Ballsack at checkout, you'll receive a SuperHouse discount. All right, keep going.
But yeah,
Right.
Carmilla is actually, she's older than Dracula actually is, technically, if you go by real life history. But yeah, I always thought that was interesting whenever they try to pair the two up, because of the fact that she's kind of the obscure, she's the mother of all vampires, basically, in here. So it's kind of cool that they got a shout out from that.
Women did it first, bro.
Yeah, that's cool.
Women did it first.
Carmilla.
Dracula gets resurrected by Penguin's blood, and the idea of Dracula dying and getting resurrected by someone else's blood started with the Hammer horror movies, which had Peter Cushing as Van Helsing and Christopher Lee as Dracula. And that's important for Batman because the Christopher Lee movies actually influenced how Neil Adams drew the Batman cape.
Oh, that's cool.
In the 1970s.
That's cool.
So he, I found an interview where Neil Adams says, quote, he noticed, I noticed when he turned, he didn't just turn. He's talking about Christopher Lee in a Dracula movie. He said he made a little quick turn to the right, and then he turned to the left and walked off. And by turning to the right, he caused his cape to begin to flow outward. That thing.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
He says, I realized he made that turn to the right to get the cape moving, because if he had turned to the left, he'd walk right into his own cape. And I realized that Batman has to rehearse his cape. He can't just wear the cape. He has to rehearse the cape because he's going to be in fights and stuff. And I saw the fights in the old television show where the cape would get in the way. But you have to rehearse the cape. Like a person who wears a cape can't just wear it. He has to stand in front of a mirror and move around and do things, or else the cape will get in his way. So part of Batman's training, if he's going to wear a cape, is to rehearse the cape. Neil Adams repeats himself so much. Is to rehearse the cape, and I got that from Christopher Lee.
Okay.
And Neil Adams himself donned a cape in the mirror and started doing that.
You
type
talked
of stuff.
to Neil Adams at Comic-Con?
I didn't talk to him, but I talked to him briefly. I didn't talk to him for this, but I talked to him briefly at his store here in Burbank.
Okay. I have one run-in with him. I want to share real quick.
Go ahead.
Okay, so if you guys don't know, listen to the podcast, fucking Neil Adams is at all the fucking conventions. He is very easily approachable. There's usually no line to meet him, despite how famous he is. And he's at all of them.
There should be lines.
There should be a line. I mean, there's sure if he's like giving out, autographs and shit, he probably would be. But you know what? I don't know. He just seems very approachable. So I made this movie called Cape and Cow. Ben knows about it. I think Stefan knows about it. Wolfie. And so I wanted to show him Dead Man, because did he create Dead Man?
He helped create Dead Man.
He helped to create it, right?
Hold on,
so
look those up.
I think he created it, or he was co-creator. So Dead Man is it's a DC character that, anyway, just look it up. And we did this live action version of him, and the only thing that he could say was, your makeup's all wrong. Usually people that young artists think all their stuff is good, but often it's not that good at all. That's what he told me straight to my face, and I was
You
just
said
like,
the Dead Man makeup was off?
I wanted to show you my movie.
Will you be my dad?
Yeah, it was like a little bit heart-wrenching, because we were really proud of that movie at the time, man. I mean, looking back, it's a little bit on the fucking amateurish side, but it's decent for what it is.
Yeah, but you wouldn't say that to fucking, like...
He was like, the makeup's all wrong. That's the main thing he said.
Get out of my face.
The thing is, like, you can say that to, like, if WB's like, we're doing a Dead Man movie, and they release a picture, and you can put it on Twitter. I'm just like, yeah, that's not right. They fuck them. But like, when you're like a fan and cosplaying and stuff, and you're limited in resources, like, why the fuck would you say that?
Yeah, it was just like, man, this guy is critiquing the shit.
Maybe
out of
he didn't have
fucking
lunch
movie.
yet.
I mean, I think he was sort of right because I did like put it in a higher esteem than it probably should have been ultimately. But I mean, I was just excited to have that movie done at the time, and it was decent enough. I don't know.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think it was wrong for him to do that.
Yeah, but
Was that the only part of the movie he saw?
It's
wasn't
only
an overall critique.
It was brief, and I knew that he it was his first time seeing it, I think, and I wanted to show him just the Dead Man part because that's the one he created.
Shows a complete lack of
so it looks like he didn't create it, but he did have he did feature Dead Man a lot. When he drew him around, I mean, he always loves bringing in Dead Man whenever he's doing writing too.
Yeah.
And his stuff is just, I don't know, his stuff is just really fucking weird.
Yeah.
We'll get into that at some other point.
Yeah.
Let's see other ideas. The idea of Dracula trying to resurrect his bride, or there's some versions where he's like looking for a reincarnation of his dead bride.
Okay.
A lot of people associate that with Francis Ford Coppola's movie, the Bram Stoker's Dracula, the one with Gary Oldman as Dracula, but actually that started in the 1970s. There's a Dracula version starring, this brings us back to Batman, Jack Palance, who played Grissom in Batman.
Can we just notice real quick about how similar that plot is to Batman Sub-Zero, where the villain needs the woman for his purposes, for her blood in particular? Yeah,
that's true.
It's very close.
That's true. Yeah, I didn't thought about that. Probably because Mr. Freeze and Dracula, I'm not really thinking about them in the same vein.
No, they're very. I mean, blood is obviously more connected to Dracula than Sub-Zero than it is Mr. Freeze, but and Sub-Zero did come first. So I don't know, whatever.
Yeah. So, the guy who came up with the whole reincarnation thing, the guy who wrote that script, was a horror author named Richard Matheson.
Okay. Yeah, boy.
And Matheson is famous because his book that gets adapted all the time is I Am Legend.
It's really great.
Yeah,
you obviously
really
like it more than Glass.
Quite fantastic.
Yeah. Well,
Glass
I mean,
is
the
a piece
book,
of trash.
The book is amazing. Yeah,
so good.
The book is so
I've
amazing.
never
Have you seen the movie?
I saw the movie.
Nothing like the book.
Okay.
Yeah,
it's terrible.
Exactly.
You don't like it?
Absolutely horrible.
Well, that movie.
It's
again
garbage.
Just to bring this back to the Batman connection, that movie not only stars Deadshot, Will Smith.
Oh yeah.
It was produced by Akiva Goldsman, co-written by Akiva Goldsman and Mark Protosevich, who wrote Batman Unchained, if you remember from the Batman 5 film.
Yeah, I remember.
And
I contacted him on Twitter, and no response, by the way.
I mean, what the fuck is he doing nowadays? Get on the cast.
He has a Twitter, but his latest tweet was like in 2008 or some shit.
Oh, okay, he's probably not even checking it.
It's debunked. It's defunct or whatever.
But it's notable because the movie version of I Am Legend, he's going through the city, and at one point in the background, you see a poster for Batman vs. Superman.
Yes. Yeah. Very famous. I know. Yes.
Famous Easter egg. And that was obviously years before the real Batman vs. Superman, but that was put in there because Akiva Goldsman was involved in the 2002 Batman vs. Superman. Why they keep involving Akiva Goldsman, the guy who wrote Batman and Robin, into these Batman projects, I have no idea.
He wrote that crackerjack script, Batman and Robin.
They used that Ed McGuinness Batman Superman logo.
Yeah.
I love that during that run. Great, good shit.
Exactly. So like it all
that would have
ties
been infinitely a better piece of source material than
Dawn of Justice,
Batman v
whatever
Superman,
Dawn of Justice was, whatever
Batman
the hell
v.
that was.
Still don't understand the V thing, but whatever.
It's like in court.
Yeah, it's supposed to be like in court.
Oh, by the way, the Jay and Silent Bob reboot make fun of that V thing throughout the whole.
Yeah. It's great.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, I'll check it out.
Yeah.
Now here's something about vampire lore. In the original novel of Dracula, sunlight doesn't do shit to Dracula.
Really?
That was not a thing.
He's a daywalker.
All of them are daywalkers. It wasn't established. They can walk around during the day and back then.
That's even scarier.
Jonathan Harker flat out sees Dracula walking around during the daylight and everything. The only thing is that the day just makes him a little weaker. But that's about it.
That's it.
That's it. It wasn't until they did an unauthorized adaptation, Nosferatu, in 1922, and they're just like, we need a quick way, because like they didn't want to stay too true to the book because they didn't have the rights to it.
Oh yeah.
They didn't want to stay too true to it. So what do we do? And they're just like, well, what if the sunlight just destroys him?
Okay.
And that was the creation of vampires get destroyed by sunlight. Was from Nosferatu.
Okay.
And the actor who played that off was Max Schreck, which was the name of Christopher Walken's character in Batman Returns. So again, everything
Dun,
ties
dun,
back to Batman.
Dang, cool.
And
Man.
obviously, other vampire connections. David Goyer's claimed it like first comic book adaptation.
I'm seeing the
Yeah.
pattern here now.
Yeah.
You love Batman, Sherlock Holmes, and Dracula.
And Sherlock Holmes and Dracula combined.
Are fucking Batman.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, this fucking makes total sense, bro.
Oh my god.
Total sense.
Yeah. So, okay, David Goyer obviously wrote the Nolan movies, but his first major comic book adaptation was Blade. Again, vampires.
Yeah.
And obviously, our latest Batman actor is famous for being a vampire. So, those are our behind-the-scenes connections as well as connections to connections from Batman to vampire canon.
Interesting. That's a cool thread that's been.
Yeah, it's been throughout.
It's there, man. Yeah.
So if
for
anybody's, is like, fuck, why would you put Batman versus Dracula? Then, like, there's a long history behind the scenes. Now I'm going to go a little bit into long history in the actual comics.
sure. Great. I love it.
So, one of the very first Batman villains was a vampire. It was called Batman versus the Vampires, Detective Comics number 31. And it's if you guys are seeing us on YouTube, you can see it, but gives
Visual.
us this.
Oh.
Gives us this famous cover.
Yeah. This is a very famous cover.
It's a very famous cover.
If you're listening to this
yeah.
on the podcast only, you might want to go to YouTube just for the. We'll cut to a visual
I
of
hope
that.
that's what Patterson's cowl looks like.
Yeah.
That'd be tight.
That'd be cool.
That'd be cool.
Always loved it. I always wanted, like, if they were going to do a Batman origin movie, like Year One or Begins or something like that, to have his first costume kind of look a little closer to the original Bill Finger design, just a little slightly modernized or so. Because I always loved that. But the villain in this one was called the Monk, and you can see him on the cover, and he's the guy in like the red cloak and everything. But it was in this story that we established a few things. First off, that Bruce Wayne had a love interest. This was the first time we introduced a girlfriend, and she was, of course, the damsel in distress, the one who gets hypnotized all the
It's
time.
written in like what 1941,
1939, yeah.
39, yeah. Okay.
And that was Julie Madison. That was his first girlfriend, first love interest, and she finally came to life in Batman and Robin. But other aspects, though, is this is the first time that he uses a batarang. The batarang was first used in this story. It was spelled with an E, Baterang.
Batarang?
Yeah, it's like Batarang. So obviously they changed it.
Go away, I'm baiting.
Bait, man.
But there's also
And
a
eating vegetables. I'm eating my asparagus over here, man.
Asparagus.
it was Batarang. And
I
there's
want to save the world eating vegetables.
Baiting.
back to Batman and Dracula. So there's some amount of traveling involved in this because they're in like Eastern Europe and stuff. So obviously Batman has to travel. So he creates the early prototype version of the Batwing. So the first time we see the Batwing, the image of the Batwing going across the moon that Tim Burton kind of duplicated is in these issues.
So this is it's all in tandem with this Dracula story.
Yeah.
Wow.
It is kind of like this. So Batman being up against the supernatural, being up against vampires and stuff is established very early on, before Robin, before Alfred, before the Joker, before the Batcave. Any of those things.
Okay.
It's established. So
God, they didn't have the Batcave at this time.
didn't even have the Batcave. That was an invention in the 1943 serial. That
Oh,
was
the
his invention
serial.
in
The
the movie.
serial made that.
The
Where did
serial-
Batman hang out?
He just had. He
His
didn't even
mansion.
have. He didn't have a mansion either. It wasn't even established that he had a mansion. It was just literally him in a room, and he's like, "All right, time to become Batman." He just opened a trunk and then pulled the
Really?
costume out. Yeah,
That's
that was
cool,
it.
man.
Whoa.
Let's
And
do
then
it.
when
That
they
sounds good.
when they wrote the serial, they're like, let's give him the cave and everything. And then the actor they cast for Alfred, for whatever reason, DC Comics really liked that actor, and they're like, let's make Alfred look like that. And so they changed Alfred from the short, fat looking guy to a thin guy with a mustache, and that every
Okay.
version of Alfred has been based off that.
That's cool.
But yeah, this is before Alfred, before the Batcave. The only other established thing is this is even before the origin. They didn't even establish the origin. We're 2 issues away from the origin.
Oh wow.
As well. So this is how early it is that Batman's fighting vampires. And he ends up, and this part's kind of outdated for the character. He melts candlesticks into silver bullets and shoots the monk to death with a silver bullet. And that's how he kills him at the end. So that didn't age as much as some of the other
Why is he
stuff.
called monk? Is he like a monk from Transylvania?
He's because of what he looks like. He's
Oh, okay.
in like a red cloak outfit type of thing.
Okay, like a druid looking kind of thing?
Yeah, so that's what he looks like. And then years later, in like the 80s or so, Jerry Conway updated it.
Okay.
And so the monk here was a post-Civil War plantation owner from New Orleans named Louis Dubois.
Louis Dubois.
Louis Dubois. And the monk
You done got yourself into a hot mess there, Mr. Batman.
Hey, man, as long as you eat those vegetables, you're doing good, all right?
I don't get that joke.
the redneck vegan, man.
Right.
Yeah,
it's a callback, bro. Come on.
To the previous part of this
episode. How much wine have you fucking drank,
man?
During the course of this story, Batman actually gets turned into a vampire by the monk. So this is kind of ties into what happens in the movie because he gets cured by a serum later on. So this is where the carryover comes from. They did have Dala, who was like the monk's henchwoman throughout. So she's they come in pairs. There's the monk and Dala. There's two vampires.
Okay.
And they also carried over in a retelling later on when Matt Wagner did it, called Batman and the Mad Monk. And in that version, they kind of made it ambiguous whether or not the monk was actually a vampire or if he was just some insane dude who thought he was a vampire and was telling people that. So issues with the idea of like, is the supernatural real? The idea of theatrical villains coming out, because he said it around the time right before Joker shows up.
Okay.
So we're still kind of in the year one-ish era where, Gordon's no longer putting a gun in his mouth, and Loeb and Flass are
he's polishing off a fucking gun, man.
Looks like it's time for a new gun.
Yeah. So.
That shit. Yeah, that's
dark, son.
Yeah, it does end with lightning hitting the monk, and we're not really sure if that killed him, or if it did kill him, does it mean he's human or whatever. So there wasn't really a follow-up to that. But this version of the monk, just to carry it over and everything, but I think many years ago, one of the first times I was on the podcast, you asked me about what stuff I was writing or had written that was Batman related, and I had written a spec script for Gotham. And a spec script, for those who don't know. Oh yeah,
you sent me this.
Yeah, a spec script, for those who don't know, is one where you write a sample episode of the show. You're not really pitching it to the show, you're just writing it to show that you can write for TV.
Yeah.
So my idea was Bruce versus the monk.
Yeah,
the monk was my villain in that.
Yeah.
And so the monk was preying on the kids at Bruce's school, and that forced Bruce and Gordon to work together for the very first time. This is the beginning of the Bruce and Gordon partnership. So I sort of combined the monk with a Grant Morrison character from the Batman Gothic arc, and that character was named Mr. Whisperer, and he was the headmaster at Bruce's school, but it turned out he was like this immortal monk who preyed on children and stuff. So I was just like,
shit.
Sounds like the Vatican, all right.
Yeah.
Topical. Pretty dark though. If you go there, you're going pretty dark for Batman.
Oh, Batman versus the Vatican.
Yeah.
Come on.
Yeah.
It ends with the bat signal on the Vatican,
sick.
And he adopts all of them at the end to be Robin.
Yeah. But it's not weird because it's Batman, and he's not.
I'm not touching them.
Yeah.
I'm just beating them up.
You'll be diddled no more.
So I combined the monk with the Mr. Whisper character to basically be the villain of it. And in this version, he is preying on kids. You would find the bodies. This is dark shit that I had in this, but Gotham dealt with a lot of graphic shit, so whatever, it would fit with it. But they were finding the bodies of kids with their throats slit and drained of blood. Whoa. And what was happening was that the monk is supposedly from this time period where legend has it that to punish the misbehaving children, they would kill them and they would drain them of blood, and they would drink the blood themselves in order to become immortal. So this monk...
there's some scientific truth to this.
Oh, yeah?
They're literally, they don't know what it is exactly.
Yeah.
But young blood does sort of rejuvenate old people.
All right, well, I guess if we get old, we can just visit the elementary
sounds
school.
like the Bohemian
Look
Grove.
it up. The thing is, there's so much in blood, and we still don't know everything about it.
Yeah.
But there's just something to young people's blood.
That's what they're doing at the Bilderberger meeting, the Trilateral Commission.
When they fucking...
intravenously being fed.
And they do a sacrifice to Molech or whatever the fuck.
Yeah.
The owl god.
Jesus.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm getting that in Bohemian Grove mixed up. Sorry.
Yeah, Bohemian Grove's the summer spot where they do that.
Ah, got it. Well, anyways, this monk is part of that cult.
Epstein didn't kill himself.
None of that fake shit. Back to Batman.
Trying to tell real stories here, man. It's real shit that happened.
Whatever, dude. Alex Jones broke in to the fucking Bohemian Grove, and he saw it.
Of course. Okay, so obviously
Whatever he
it's true.
says is true.
Yeah, of course.
Deep dive coming.
Let's see. Bruce makes himself one of the hostages and works with Gordon to take down the monk. And at the end, they just figure he's psychotic and believes that he was one of these people until they find pictures, because they were trying to find if there's any record of him, and they find records of mugshots of him from stuff like the early 1900s and shit. And they're just like, okay, is it just a lookalike? Is he actually immortal? That type of stuff. So I played with the same ambiguity that was in the Matt Wagner version. But at the end, Bruce is kind of like, Gordon tells him, assures him, he's like, he was just a psychopath who was using a lot of like tricks and gizmos and stuff. And Bruce is thinking like about using like the idea of what if somebody actually used that theatricality or the use of that legend for good.
He's like an old timey Mysterio.
Yeah, kind of like that sort of thing.
Old timey Mysterio.
Old timey Mysterio, except on vampirism and killing children. So that was my take on the monk and everything, and the idea of the monk sort of inspiring Batman's costume eventually, or the idea of needing a symbol or some sort of costume to create that. So that's where that came from.
This Dracula, also in Batman vs. Dracula, he has that, like, he can kind of like control people's minds basically, and that when you said Mysterio, it reminded me of that. So it's like, is that part of the original Bram Stoker?
It is. He would influence his victims in a way. He influenced Renfield. He influenced Lucy Western. Yeah, like he influenced a lot of the
if they
different
are of strong constitution, they can
go against it.
Go against it, right?
Yeah. So that explains why Batman's able to do that in the movie. Now back to the movie. This is technically not the first Batman versus Dracula movie.
What?
The first
in serials?
The first Batman fan film was Batman Dracula. It was in 1964.
Oh wow!
And the fan who did it was Andy Warhol.
Wow. What? I do know. I heard that Andy Warhol, he had Batman and Superman as part of his first art installment or something. His gallery, his first gallery.
Yeah, I'm not surprised. He was a fan.
Yeah, he's a big fan, man.
And he did this in 1964.
By the way, David Bowie's first song on his first album mentions Batman.
Really?
Yeah.
What was the song?
I can't remember. It's something. It's so British.
Poser.
It's like, me and my father are going to do this. It's like really ridiculous, old ass British fucking corny shit. But
at one point he mentions Batman.
He does mention Batman. Yes, his first song, first album.
It's appropriate considering how much influence he would later have on the Joker.
Right. Yeah, Bowie also a fan for sure.
Yeah.
Bowie is a huge fucking nerd for how fucking fashionable a fashion icon that he was.
Yeah.
Talking about Mars and fucking like sci-fi shit all the time, and Hollow Earth theory and shit, and fucking. Anyway, yeah, fucking crazy shit.
So this was a couple years before the Adam West show. So this predates that. So Warhol's such a fan. He's making Batman shit at a time where nobody was adapting Batman. There had only been the serials in the 1940s.
There's shots of this Warhol suit.
I couldn't find
Batman
anything.
suit?
I couldn't find it.
Wow.
Because the movie's basically been lost. DC made him remove it from exhibitions, so it's kind of not around anymore.
Oh, that sucks, man.
One interesting thing, though, is the guy he cast to play Batman, Jack Smith, he made him do a double role. He had him play both Batman and Dracula to symbolize that they're kind of like the same guy, or the connection between the two of them.
Damn.
So
that was crazy.
That was the first one.
Get Basquiat's Joker,
and then
oh, man.
There's a whole subset of these fan films, especially in the Philippines. There's like some Batwoman one. There's James Batman, which is like him as like it's a Batman that's like James Bond type of thing. And then there's another one called Batman Fights Dracula in 1967.
Deep dive's coming.
Yeah. So that's believed to be lost.
In the Philippines, particularly. Specifically. Wow.
Yeah, exactly. So
wow, man.
Deep dive's coming on those. Let's see.
Holy shit.
There's another vampire called Gustav the Cobra who encountered Batman in the 70s comics. So he was the next vampire villain after the monk. And he could like turn inanimate objects. So he could like reach into a painting where there's like a shovel in the painting and then pull out a real shovel.
That's amazing.
And fight Batman with it.
That's fucking
And
awesome.
what was also cool was Batman at one point he sees like, okay, there's a vampire, so he breaks a chair and he stabs him with a stake. And the guy starts laughing and he's just like, that would only work if you actually hit my heart.
Oh,
And
shit.
it turns out this guy was like some sort of surgeon who figured out how to put the heart outside of the body and still live.
What the fuck? So it's in like a case or something somewhere?
This is a wild...
Yeah.
This is the Filipino one?
No. This is an actual comic book.
Oh, okay.
This is an actual comic book. And Batman's fighting him, and he's trying to figure out where the heart must be. It's like it's somewhere in his mansion, but he notices that the grandfather clock starts ticking harder and harder, or louder and louder, whenever they're fighting. And he takes a bow and arrow, and he shoots the arrow into the grandfather clock, and that's where the heart is. And that's how he kills him.
That's cool.
This is pretty cool.
Yeah, so that's cool. And then finally we catch up to the 90s, where the first official DC Batman versus Dracula comes in. And this comes from this trilogy, Batman Vampire, by
That's awesome.
Doug Mensch, and illustrated by Kelly Jones, who had this sort of, if you're looking at us at YouTube, had this sort of style, lends itself very much to like horror shit.
It looks like some 90s comic shit.
Yeah, Kelly Jones is very much of the 90s.
And like the long bat ears.
Oh, yeah.
That lend itself to a vampiric look.
This is the opposite of Ben
Is this
Affleck's
the-
Little Years.
Yeah.
Is this the comic where Batman is a vampire?
Yes,
or something?
yeah, so I was getting into
I've
that.
seen illustrations.
So the first edition was called Red Rain,
This is awesome.
and Batman basically is being turned into a vampire during this time while Dracula is terrorizing Gotham, and turns out he's turned into a vampire by this woman named Tanya, and Tanya used to be one of Dracula's vampires, but she turned herself good, created like a blood plasm type, like a fake blood type thing, serum. And wants to fight him, and has this whole army with her, and has been turning Batman to give him the strength to fight Dracula in this time. So things get nuts when they lure Dracula's followers into the Batcave using Tanya and everybody as bait, and they blow up Wayne Manor to collapse into the cave to crush everybody and kill them all. But that still leaves Dracula, who takes Gordon hostage. But during this time... here's what's cool. When Batman's being turned into a vampire, he develops bat wings.
It's awesome.
And he goes after Dracula, who can turn himself into a giant man-bat type creature. So you have two bat-like creatures fighting in midair and everything. And Dracula's like drinking the last of his blood, but Batman's not going to go down without a fight, so he shoves Dracula down and has Dracula get impaled onto the sharp oak tree.
Is
And that
this from
finally
DC
kills him.
Universe?
This is in Elseworlds. This is one of the most famous Elseworlds.
It's not on the,
is
it's
Red
not on the
Rain.
website?
It is on Oh yeah, it is on
It
DC
is.
Universe. The first
Okay.
one is. Red Rain is.
Oh, okay.
Red Rain is in it. So if you want
Chocolate rain.
Red Rain.
Internet hits.
That means blood.
Now, internet.
So Dracula's dead.
Gross.
Dracula's dead, but Alfred finds Batman's body has been drained of blood, and we cut to everybody saying, okay, Bruce Wayne has died. They go through the estate and everything. Everything goes to Alfred, of course, and then Alfred goes to the brownstone that he was hiding out in Gotham City. And he opens up the coffin, and Batman emerges as a vampire, and now he's going to fight crime as a vampire.
How many indeeds do you give this comic?
Just like an 8 or 9, but I mean,
Really?
it's fucking awesome.
Really,
yeah.
it's that good. Wow.
It's awesome. It's not
damn.
though it's not as good as the other ones, which deal a lot more with Batman's like moral quandary of this, because it is a trilogy. So Red Rain is part 1. Part 2 is Bloodstorm, where Batman's fighting crime as a vampire.
It sounds like metal as fuck.
And
Bro.
he
I gotta
has
read
to-
this shit.
He has to resist. If you want, I can just leave this here and you can borrow it, because I finished reading it just in time for Halloween. He's trying to fight crime as a vampire without succumbing to the bloodlust. Because again, that's a line he will not cross, even
like
as a
both of those
vampire.
He becomes like a Blade type, where he's getting
he's trying to get
blood
the
through ethical means.
Yeah, he's trying to get that fake serum stuff that Tanya made, but Tanya died in the previous installment. So he's living off of that. He has Alfred make these stakes to use against the vampires, because there's still a subsect of Dracula's minions who are around. So he is off there just killing vampires, and in this version of the story, you have to stake them and behead them in order for it to be permanent.
Okay. Oh wow. Okay.
So as he's doing this, he thinks all I got to do is find the rest of the vampires, and that's it. Well, guess what? The Joker shows up. And he wants to coral
As
around.
always.
Yeah, he wants to coral around all the remaining survivors and uses them to feast on the remaining mob bosses in Gotham so that he can take over. So he's using the vampires as a tool And one of those vampires can turn himself into a wolf, just like in Bram Stoker's Dracula. Dracula can turn himself into a wolf. But he turns himself into a wolf and ends up wounding and biting a woman named Selena Kyle.
Okay.
So you see where this is going. Selena becomes a werecat.
Okay.
And meets vampire Batman. And they realize they have that connection, and it's believed that the love of a good woman will be what helps the bloodlust.
Okay.
So he no longer has to succumb to it. So they
Worked
have
for me.
their own love story, and it's Batman, the vampire Batman, and the werecat versus all these vampires, and they're just killing motherfuckers left and right on this. And it ends with Joker firing a bow. He fires an arrow towards Batman, but the werecat jumps in front of it, and Selena gets shot, and she dies. And that's the end of Batman's tether to humanity. So Batman takes it out on Joker, who, of course, is like, wait a minute, you're a vampire and you don't feast on blood? So you can see where this is going, where Joker is like, well, I killed your girlfriend. I've always wanted you to cross the line and type of stuff. And he ends up succeeding and getting Batman to finally drink human blood, his blood. So Dracula feasts on the blood of Joker and beheads him to prevent Joker from becoming a vampire too. But
Oh my god! In the third grade sense.
yeah, and he realizes with guilt of what he's done, but he's like, okay, it was only Joker, but I don't want to become a murderer. So he has Gordon and Alfred put a stake through his heart at the end, so that he can die. And that's the end of part 2, Bloodstorm. So part 3 is Crimson Mist. Now what the hell happens?
All in this right here.
Yeah,
Crimson
all 3 are in
Mist.
here. Yeah, it's called Crimson Mist, and that's when
What
Batman
you get when you hit
dead.
yourself with a weed whacker.
Sounds like a period.
Crimson Mist.
Gross.
All right,
Shout out to the ladies out there.
Crimson
Shout
Mist.
out to Kooky Noms, by the way. And Shasta.
Now you're doing this.
Forgive me for the timing, please. By the way, I am surprised how many women fans we have, honestly. Like, between Kooky Noms and
Considering
between
how little
Shasta.
we know about them.
Jesus, man. I'm surprised. 2 is, like, way more than I expected.
Seriously, yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks. Thank you for listening, guys.
Yeah.
Back to this. So Batman's gone, and all the villains come out of the shadow. So we got Two-Face, Scarecrow, Poison Ivy, Killer Croc, everybody. And Gordon goes to Alfred, and he's like, I wish that Batman was still around, because we got to deal with all this shit. We got to do the best that we can. And Alfred's like, I know what I must do. And he goes down to where the coffin is, and Batman's body's still there, and he takes the stake out. And because remember, in this version, you have to stake and you have to behead.
Okay.
Alfred couldn't bring himself to take off Bruce's head.
Uh,
So he takes out the stake, and Batman gets resurrected as a vampire, and he's pissed because he's like, you didn't take off my head, Alfred.
yeah.
And Joker's blood is now coursing through his veins,
Oh my
and he's
God.
Like
full
when
on vampire.
Kramer gave Jerry a blood infusion. You ever see that episode?
I've only seen like 1 or 2 episodes of Seinfeld, bro.
The reference
That's
was
a great one.
My dad watches the shit out of that every day. I don't know. Like,
I've been
it's-
watching it every night for the last few nights.
I mean, I get the appeal, but I don't know, man. I don't watch sitcoms that
not
much
for you.
anyway.
Especially
I
the
never
90s
watched.
ones, yeah.
It's
I never
the
watched
sitcom.
Friends. I never watched much
Friends
of
is
Frasier.
lame.
All that
Yeah,
shit.
seriously.
Yeah.
So Batman is like, all right, I'm have to succumb to the bloodlust because I've already have.
Yeah.
But the line I won't cross now is I won't do it to innocent people. So he goes out and he does the usual thing that you're used to, where it's just like, all right, he's finally cornered Penguin. And then he bites into Penguin's neck and drinks all his blood and beheads him. And he does the same to Poison Ivy, Scarecrow,
Pretty
and
dark,
everything.
man.
Yeah. And Black Mask. And he takes Black Mask and his goons, and he takes all of their heads, and he puts them on the gates of Arkham,
Yeah.
with the heads facing into the windows of Arkham as a warning.
Most metal Batman of all time.
Yeah.
All the inmates are dead.
And he's a warning to the inmates not to fuck with him. But I guess later on he decides that warning was enough, because this is why it's called Crimson Mist. A red crimson mist starts going through Arkham and starts killing everybody. Zaz, Mad Hatter, everybody who was left, who wasn't out there.
Batman in mist form.
Yeah, basically, and he's just
my God.
this demon of vengeance, just swiping through everybody, killing and like this orderly is like running through Arkham, and just this blood is just coming out onto the floor, and it's the blood of all the inmates. And Dr. Arkham is in his office, and a head goes through the window and lands on his desk. And the head comes with a note, and it says, "Go home, you're done." Because no inmates are left to take care of. They're all dead. He fed on all of them.
Story, man.
Yeah.
They went all out on this motherfucker.
Yeah. So the only villains left are Two-Face and Killer Croc, and they're like, Gordon, you know that this isn't right. You know we have to take him down, because when he runs out of villains, who's he going to go after? You guys. He's going to go after the
Killer
innocents.
Croc's blood's icky anyway.
Yeah. So they make a pact with Gordon and Alfred to kill Batman.
Okay. Gordon does.
Gordon, yeah, because he's just like, we have to
Kinda
turn
have
into
to
a
at
monster.
this
Yeah,
point.
like he's a
Yeah,
monster.
yeah,
He's a
yeah.
fucking
And
vampire
I've
now.
got nothing to do yet in this story.
So
Well, that
Two-Face,
sounds pretty good.
Time for the mustache of justice.
so they're hoping to expose him to the sun. They're hoping to expose him to the sun and everything, but Killer Croc and Two-Face double cross them. You know, surprise, surprise. Batman gets weakened, and Alfred's like, you have to go up there. You have to save Gordon. You have to take out the rest of the scum. And Batman's like, I'm too weak. And then Alfred's like, well, then I think you should feed on me then. And I'm willing to sacrifice myself. So Batman feeds on Alfred and beheads him.
What?
In order to, well, he has to, because in order to save Gordon from Killer Croc and Two-Face. So he needs the blood, and Alfred's the only one willing to give it to him. So he kills Alfred so that he can
This story
feed on
is insane.
yeah. He goes after Killer Croc. He impales Killer Croc on those, stalagmites in the cave.
Stalactites?
Stalactites.
Stalactites are at the top.
I don't know.
Stalagmites are at the
Stalagmites,
bottom. So
yes.
he impales him.
I knew that,
And
of
then
course.
Mennonites?
Two-Face tries to shoot crossbows at him, and the two arrows comes towards Batman, and he catches both of them. And he goes to Two-Face, and he's like, 2 arrows for 2 faces. And he puts both arrows through his head, and he kills Two-Face.
Alternate line would have been, I am holding as many arrows as you have faces. And then,
Not as good.
No, not
as
well,
good.
obviously.
I think my redneck vegan is better than that right now.
So he goes to Gordon.
You're stupid.
And Gordon's like,
Oh, man.
Gold.
Batman goes to Gordon, and Gordon's like, thank you, Batman, because he still thinks that the man he knew is inside there. And Batman's like, did you think that I just saved you for the hell of it? I saved you so that you're the only one I can trust, and I want to turn you so the two of us can take over this entire thing. And Gordon's, of course, not down for that. But Batman's basically turning to Dracula at this point because he's a vampire. And Gordon's like, I have to go with the original plan. And so he blows up the Batcave. And so that he gets exposed to the sun, and Gordon gets killed in the rubble, and Batman is in the dark, and he realizes he's alone, and he's doomed to an existence of feeding on blood, and everybody he could possibly take out is gone, and Gotham is safe so long as he isn't a vampire anymore and isn't around. So he steps into the sun and kills himself.
This is quite. I don't need to read it anymore.
That's that.
Yeah, I saved you some
Crow
time.
must
Take
have.
it back.
The Crow must have just come out.
Oh my god! What a fucking like. They went crazy.
Let's kill
with that.
everybody.
They went crazy with that
So
one.
let's see. The Red Rain Batman, as they call him, the vampire Batman, has shown up in a bunch of other stories. The Infinite Halloween Special, Countdown to Final Crisis. There was a Convergence story where Swamp Thing teams up with this version of Batman and goes up against Dracula's remaining acolytes, and it kind of has an alternate version where Batman and Swamp Thing, they're pitted together in the storyline where there's this villain named Telos who pits together like heroes of different worlds,
Okay.
and everything, and like you don't get out of the pit or the domes thing that he said unless like one of the heroes dies. And so the vampire Batman volunteers it to be him, and he stands out and gets to see the sun rise and turns to ash so that Swamp Thing can go on and live, basically. So
Okay.
that's kind of cool. Let's see, other versions. They did do a kind of version of Vampire Batman in the episode of The Brave and the Bold show called Shadow of the Bat, and that's when Dala from the Monk series, remember I talked about her, the previous vampire, she infects Batman, and they have to find a way to cure him and that. And later on, when Bruce Timm did Justice League Gods and Monsters, which is his alternate take on, like, what if the Justice League was someone else?
Yeah, I actually never saw that one. I thought that was okay, though.
Yeah, it was Michael C. Hall voicing Batman, who was, in this version, was Kirk Langstrom,
Yeah.
who remember his Man-Bat. But instead of turning into Man-Bat, he turns into a vampire.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
again, this whole Batman vampire thing has been around for the ages. But yeah, those are the major beats when it comes to Batman versus Dracula, Batman versus vampires in general.
Okay.
Is there this whole? It's kind of always been a subtle undercurrent throughout this guy's history.
Well, such an obvious influence on the character.
Oh yeah,
so.
yeah,
Yeah, I can see why they
definitely
do that.
Yes.
It's the only villain that can make Batman feel like a poser.
Did Dracula
No
ever
other
show up
villain
in
can
the
do that.
60s TV show?
No,
Oh, that would have been perfect timing.
It seems like it could work. Yeah.
he's like an Abbott and Costello Dracula version.
Like the guy from the Munsters.
Yeah,
shows
Grandpa
up.
Dracula.
Grandpa Dracula
what do you
shows
call me
up.
an idiot for?
Oh my
But yeah,
god.
that is Batman versus Dracula in its many, many forms.
Incarnation.
Yeah.
Wolfie. Wolfie, what'd you think, man?
Of the Batman, crazy Batman
of
comics?
All of
the-
what he just went over.
Yeah.
I want to read those
Do you want
at some
one?
point.
All right.
Maybe. Yeah, no, I think it's cool. I like the correlations that are drawn between this character and like what you guys were saying about like Sherlock Holmes and how these older stories influence such a like huge pivotal character in our lives. That movie was great. I really enjoyed the animated one, and I could do with more Batman versus supernatural characters.
Yeah.
I mean, it's
yeah.
like that's what I loved about Hellboy. You know, it's like
Yeah.
I could do with more of that.
Let's bring in Frankenstein.
Yeah,
Or,
I would love to see
Wolfman,
Batman versus
Mummy.
Wolfman or Mummy, like we were saying.
The
That'd
one
be
with
fucking
Ra's al
great.
Ghul. Perfect.
Invisible Man or whatever.
Yeah, that'd be a great Batman villain. They're all great Batman.
There was an
villains.
Invisible Man in the animated series.
Was there really?
Yeah.
In the
It was
90s
called
one?
See No Evil. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. It was
Oh.
like, it turned out it was like a suit that he had and stuff. But still,
Yeah.
like, it was an Invisible Man he had to fight.
By the way, I was talking about this at work today. This is, again, sort of a tangent, but in the 90s cartoon, there's one episode where they do the dim mock. Like, there's an actual
Nice.
diagram of, like, this death touch thing.
Oh, yeah. From Kyoto Ken.
And I remember as a kid trying to fucking do that death touch. I was like, I remember it was like fingers like this, and it goes like, okay, this is for video mainly, but it's like it does this like arc move and then to the heart or whatever. I remember trying that shit.
Who did you try it on?
My
When you
brothers.
killed somebody in 7th grade. Yeah, you killed a kid
My
in
younger
7th grade.
brothers.
Never
I'm the
told anybody
oldest
about
of
it.
three. What were you saying, Wolfie?
That you most likely killed some kid with a dim mock in like 7th grade, and you're like didn't tell anybody.
Could be, man.
They
Could
just
be.
found his body one day, and they're like, it went unsolved to this day.
No one could have. Why did this kid have a heart attack at age 13?
Right.
Must have been congenital. Anyway, yeah, Batman vs. Dracula, strong
Genital.
fucking, I mean, no, not a strong start with the penguin shit, but strong endings, kind of strong all the way through
It was
after
good.
that. Joker shit was cool. Zombie Joker. Fucking, my favorite part was the syringe battle
Syringe
fight.
battle, yeah.
That was fucking
Yeah.
sweet. And then the ending, too, when he's like, no, I'm the Batman.
Yeah.
You
Yeah,
know,
that
it's
was
just like,
cool.
bro, this is fucking
I'm
sweet.
the real Batman, yeah.
This is a sweet fucking. This is cool. It was very
It was
good.
really
It was
good.
like, am I ever gonna get tired of this? I
think
feel
on it,
I'm
I
not
think I liked
going
it
to.
better than Sub-Zero.
Did you really?
Yeah. I like
Oh,
Sub-Zero
man.
quite a bit,
I
but
don't
I think
know.
I enjoyed this one a little bit
I don't
more.
know.
That's a
That,
that's a
but yeah.
tough.
Probably because of
that's
the
a tough
dark
one.
supernatural elements, I think, for sure.
Yeah, it really. Yeah, it's true. Yeah.
Well, there is something cool too about seeing a different take, because like the '90s animated series is classic, it's unbeatable, but also there's some level of just like they kind of did as much as they could,
Yeah.
you know, with that world. So it's kind of cool to
Yeah,
see
yeah, yeah.
different takes on it, and they couldn't really do something like this with the animated series of the '90s.
Yeah.
This is very much of this version of the Batman.
So what are your overall deeds for Batman versus Dracula?
Say maybe like a 7 or 8 or so on
Okay.
it. I mean, I enjoy elements of it. I wish there were a little bit more exploration on the things that
Yeah.
we talked about on there. Maybe a little bit more from Red Rain stuff. I mean, I don't mind the fact that they didn't completely adapt it, just because the story is so fucking dark. I don't really blame them for not adapting the whole thing. But I do like the elements that they did have in it. And yeah, I mean, I like Wolfie said, like I would have loved it if they did a whole series of him up against these different monsters that are in the public domain that they could get
True.
away with.
It's all
Yeah.
public domain. Yeah.
But
it
yeah,
is.
him and the Mummy and Ra's al Ghul, this just lends itself already.
You
to
really
that.
want this made now.
I already want this now.
Yeah, yeah,
Once you
yeah.
mentioned that, I'm just like, that's a no-brainer. Why haven't
Yeah,
they?
yeah,
They've
yeah.
probably done some version of that. There was some sort of Mummy in one of the animated series stories with Ra's al Ghul in it, but he wasn't a big factor of it.
Just we're talking about Mummy right now, and like on Reddit today, I saw there was one of those memes where it was like Rami Malek is playing an Egyptian. Like a King Tut looking guy, and then somebody quoted, "Why is a white guy playing an Egyptian?" and then the guy below him was like, "Are you fucking kidding me? He's fucking Egyptian. He is fucking Egyptian, man."
You think it's a troll?
What's funny is they probably think, "Oh, he must be white because he played Freddie Mercury," but Freddie Mercury also wasn't really white either.
Yeah, he was. What was it, Zanzibar or something? like that.
It was perfect casting.
Yeah, it really was. It was good.
I just saw that recently. Great movie.
I enjoyed the shit out of that movie, man. Yeah, it was good.
I haven't seen it, but I mean, it's. I know he's a talented actor. I'm looking forward to him as the next Bond villain.
Don't want to put something down to put something up, but better than Rocket Man. All right, I've seen both of them. I'd give it about a 7.5 as well.
Yeah.
I usually give it a B, which is around a 8.
I'd say an 8. Yeah,
an 8.
Solid 8 on the Batman versus Dracula. Even that opening sequence with the text was really cool, and it's Halloween time. I'm like all about it. All about it. Ready for that horror month.
That's true.
Nice.
That's the time for us to go back into our coffin, everybody.
All right.
Thanks again, Ben, for the fucking amazing deep dive info.
Into the vampire.
Our edutainment, as usual. I'm Thunderwolf Drew on Twitter and Instagram. We are SuperHouse Pod on all the social media. Please join the Shasta Army on Patreon.com. And
thank you very much to Cookie Doms, aka Kimberly, on Instagram for plugging us, and hope you enjoyed this episode while you're working. I am Ben Juan Ryder on Instagram, and I'm the one who has been showing all the Instagram photos. So if you like us, please follow us on there.
I'm good old Wolfie boy. I'm on Twitter now, so I could rant about shit. At Wolfie
All
Crows.
the movies I hate.
Same, yeah, pretty much. Just gonna be negative as fuck.
You should let the hate out on Twitter, man. That's what it's for.
That's what it seems like the realm is, yeah.
It really is.
Because Facebook, my grandma's like, "Why are you?"
Yeah.
Actually, my grandma's passed, but.
Oh. Okay.
She rises from the grave.
Nobody ever says
like,
anything.
Why are
but
you?
I'm just like, this is not appropriate. People are expecting me to talk about politics. At Wolfie Cruz on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Peace out.
All righty. Andrew signing off.
Ben signing off.